Did our 7 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you very much for taking time out and coming here this evening. First order of business, we have to approve the last general meeting's minutes. So if you will take a minute and take a look at the meeting minutes, you have a copy. And then as soon as we're ready, if somebody wants to make a motion to accept, and then a second, and we'll vote. Thank you.
I motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are accepted. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the President's remarks. The President isn't here, and he gave me some comments about the beach, but we'll get to that later, so we'll skip the President. And the two really big items today are the beach erosion and the budget. Does any other committee have any report? I thought you wanted to say
I was
something.
just going to say something about Fred Marty's people that are new here, that haven't been acquainted with Fred Marty's. It's an invasive, large vehicle grass, and people sometimes were upset that we were moving it, but it's a state request that we do so, because it will eat into the waterways. And in fact, there was a call that we got a while back complaining about erosion on the Drum Point Lake. And we've been treating dragons for a couple of years now. And I talked to our invasive species guy, and he said, well, what you're seeing is a return of the original shoreline. The phragmites had gone that far into the water. So if you see this lovely grass, anybody here who doesn't know what phragmites is? So, oh, you don't know? We'll have to learn in the newsletter next time. So anyhow, it's an invasive species, and we do have our experts come and treat it on common property, not on individual property. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, it's tall.
It's very tall.
Beautiful.
Oh, it's
Oh,
great.
yeah. Some people complain of killing it because it's so nice looking.
It can get to be 13 feet high. It's got these fronds. It's very attractive, but it's not something that we can continue to deal with. We just have to get rid of it as best we can and treat it every year, and every year we make some headway, but there's a lot of root structure and dormant seeds underneath. I guess the one thing I do want to say is if you see it and you say, oh, gee, I really want to get rid of this, I'll dig it up. That's the worst thing you can do because it causes the dormant seeds to say, oh, and so do not dig the thing up. If you're interested, you can ask me if you get more information. If you have it on your property and want to get rid of it, we have somebody we can recommend. But that's that's all that.
All right, well,
Tony, I was going to just give a little update on the roads.
Oh, okay,
There's
please.
a fair amount going on.
Please.
I don't know if any of you are aware, but in November of '21, a storm came through and we had damage on the Bay Drive Causeway. And we've been trying to get a contractor. We have a contract in place, but supplies and other work fell behind because of COVID and so on. We should be seeing that repaired. Ward's Marine's going to be doing it in the next, I hope, month. I mean, it's been a long year and a half. Permits are in place and so on, so that's still on the list. Paving is being, well, let me get stormwater management first. We've done several projects, small projects on Surf Street at Beach Drive. These have been on the list for a while. So it's very nice to see a lot of these getting taken care of. So Surf Street at Beach Drive, and they're all minor. Riverview Causeway has a little bit of erosion. 2 areas on Mills Creek, Pine Place at Surf Street, Leeson Cove, another one on Perrin Drive. Oh, that's I hadn't mentioned. Anyway, Perrin Drive, and for a total of about $12,000 is what we've spent on those. Because as I say, they're all pretty small. Now for paving, we're working on this year's 2023's paving job. So that's going to be Surf Street, Iris Lane, Beach Drive, Cree, Delaware Drive at Hollyway, including Hollyway, and Grover Lane from Huron to the end. And I saved that for the last because I wanted to mention we have a man, Steve Rowe, somewhere here. They're looking right at you, who's going to be our new project manager. And, Jeff McDonald, who some of you may have heard us talk about, is in the process of kind of bringing him on board to train him and so on, mentor him along the way. So that's for those who don't know. That's it. Oh.
When you started your presentation, which causeway were you speaking?
Riverview Causeway. Oh, I'm sorry, the Bay Drive Causeway had erosion. Is that the one you're talking about?
No,
That hasn't been done
we're
yet?
off of Vista Lakes. So.
Riverview was, had a little bit of mild, it was so small, it was like an
Well, yeah, it wasn't
$800
personal.
job, it wasn't major. Yeah, that's it.
Anything else on roads? All right, well, that brings us to the beach preservation and erosion project. By way of a little bit of history, I understand there was something in the community Facebook page that said that, you know, the board didn't care about the beach and we just weren't doing anything and we hadn't cared, we never cared, and didn't look at it. The beach project was started talking about it at least for maybe longer, 4 years ago. There were a lot of things that had to be talked about. Money, people had to be convinced. There was just this major discussion of, well, gee, do we really need it? Who's going to use it? All of those discussions took a couple of years. And then, of course, we decided to start going ahead with it. Then discussion of project, getting people on board, getting a design. Then it goes out for approvals. And finally, believe it or not, we are making really tremendous headway. I don't have my glasses on, but I will still read from the script.
You want Kurt's glasses?
All engineering drawings and specs have been completed by Coastline Design. They're all done, they've been presented to various organizations. Permits have been approved by the Maryland Department of Environment, Maryland Public Works, and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Where it is right now is Calvert County is reviewing our permits for final approval. We don't think there's going to be any hitch. We hope there isn't after all these years. Our preliminary estimate on cost is about $140,000. I personally think it'll be about 10% more than that.
We budgeted one.
Oh, you budgeted more into it, okay. That's the paper estimate. If you've ever even had your kitchen painted, you know the guy came in and said it's gonna cost $10 and it ended up costing $20. Nothing ever comes in the way they estimate. Coastline Design has prepared a complete bid package. So as soon as we get the final approval, we're ready to go out for bids. The DPPOA, we will send out the request for proposals to 5 or 6 potential marine construction companies. We hope to do this by mid-July. We'll see what happens. That's if Calvert County doesn't hold us up. If that happens, then we hope to have a pre-bid meeting by mid-August. If that follows on time, then we hope to have our source selection in mid-September. If that goes well and nothing goes wrong, then we hope to have the project completed by the end of December 2023. You can all laugh. I don't believe that date for a minute, but that's what's on paper, so that's what I'll read. And then the original people that we've been working with, Coastline Design, they will assist with the selection and the inspection of the contractor and work. So after these many years, in spite of messages on Facebook and everything else, we are moving forward.
Can I just add to that?
Yes,
I
ma'am?
hope that somebody responded to that. I'm not on
Carol,
Facebook.
Carol's
Carol's
not.
Okay, yeah, Carol's now, because it's
Yeah.
been Mike that's spearheading it. But also, I just wanted to say, really, COVID delayed a lot of the permitting and so on, because people were not in their offices, you couldn't get in touch with anybody and so on. It wasn't for lack of trying, so
Yeah.
I'm sure Carol set them right.
Permitting is tough enough, especially when you have the state and the Corps of Engineers.
Right.
Permitting is tough enough, COVID made it just that extra step harder. But we've overcome all of that, we're at the county level, and as soon as that happens, we're ready to move ahead. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
If we're curious about the nature of the project, where can we dig in?
All of the plans are posted on the website.
Okay.
If you've been on the website, there's links at the top, and you would click on the, I know you've been on the website. Come on.
Maybe.
I'm just kidding. But the community beach link at the top, and that's got all the drawings, all the, everything. So,
Thank you. Thanks for the efforts.
And I think there's a lot of detail on there.
Yes, there is.
The actual, I looked at it, I said, oh God, eyes glaze over, but it looks like there's detail there. Any other questions, comments? Yes.
Does the website also include the plan for the funding of this project?
Well, the project is already funded. In fact, we have it included in the budget. We have money included in our STD, Special Tax District. Once approved, we have no doubt that unless suddenly it quadruples in price, we have no doubt that we can fund it.
Sorry, we're newbies.
No problem.
It's a good question.
It's a good question, though, yeah.
I want to mention about the effort that we did to get a grant.
We did try to get a grant through the state, and that was another thing that Mike spearheaded. We were ultimately rejected for that, but what we did when we went for the special tax district, which just began in July of last year, we're in the first year of a new 5-year district, we requested that we be approved for some funding of that. And we were, an extra $10 a year to everybody in your special tax district. Well, that's not all the cost, but that's over the course of 5 years. So I think it comes out to $12,000 from your special tax district. The rest of it, but what we said is, if we can get this grant, then we would like in the second year of the tax district to reduce your amount by $10. Well, we were rejected for the grant, so it's going to stay. It's $175 a year. Yeah, actually, we had a conference call with, and I don't know the name of the agency. Doesn't matter. But Mike Snap, president of the board, and I and this woman spoke, and ultimately it was that, well, number one, we're not a nonprofit, we're a not-for-profit, and that's a totally different level of being able to qualify. But also, I think it wasn't seen as an infrastructure of a community enough to benefit the entire community.
It wasn't seen as really a public beach.
Exactly. So, for various reasons. And it is hard for a community like us to get a grant because we have tried it in the past. And I attended a lecture years ago now where the woman that was giving the lecture, I asked about it, and she said, well, you may as well not even bother because we don't have the right designation for tax purposes, that being a nonprofit. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
The other issue is that there were a lot of applicants for grants.
Oh, that's right, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we were just not ranked as high as some of the others.
exactly.
or competition.
Yeah.
Mike's net, it's just like, just such
He's
an enormous
done a
amount of work, I'm
wonderful
just
job.
always blown away seeing this stuff done. It's been amazing.
Anything else on the beach? Sounds like a movie. No. If we're done with the beach, then we'll have Jack take over the next big item of business, the budget.
Yeah, that's, every June, that's our big issue in our community meetings. First thing would be just look at the last fiscal year. New fiscal year starts in 2 days, so you can pretty much see everything we spent. That would be in profit and loss budget versus actual. That's one document that you have. It's probably more numbers than you want, but if there's any question, the answer is going to be somewhere on these line items that we'll keep track of. And the first part of that is our income and expenses. We have income from a lot of different sources, including the covenant fees, our own covenant fees, the mandatory assessment, other special tax district is another one. State highway user revenue, that's SURE, S-H-U-R. That's our share of the gas tax. We don't pay when we buy gasoline. Which is, it's nice to have. Anyway, the total we have is, we budgeted 218, but we've only used 208,216. So it says over budget with a negative number, which means that we have a little more money than we anticipated.
We're not over budget, but we're under budget.
No, it's just was our estimate.
Oh.
Back then. So that first section is all of our income, the various incomes. Then all the other lines are all expenses, so we try to put everything out there. So if you have any questions about what we're spending it on, what's happening around the community, you'll see the work is listed here and how much it costs. So you can, and including the beach. This is a lot to go through. I'm gonna do that.
Oh, okay. Is that how you,
Yeah, that's what we have to vote on.
oh, okay.
The one, there's some, you'll see some big numbers here. One is snow removal. Didn't have any. That was pretty good for us this year, so that saved us $47,000. That's about how much we spend every year for snow removal and salt. So that was a big help for us. We'll see that in line 6755 if you want to follow it that closely. The major road project was $180,000, not yet paid, so it's listed as in the over budget line with a negative number because we haven't paid it. But that'll go down to zero in a couple of days. I think we've got the good fund started out the work. And then the last line of roads and rights of way, that section there, 6845, is the line where we put expenses for the community beach. So far, we spent just $5,000
That's for permitting and some.
for all our permits, plans.
Well, we spent some of the preceding fiscal year paying the engineering company. It's not going to show on here because it was the previous year.
So, that's everything that we've done. That's our history for the last year. If there's any questions about what we spent or any other questions? Yes, sir.
Sorry. It looks like you had planned a bunch of IT upgrades for the budget and they weren't required, and I'm just curious. I'm an IT guy, so.
You're the expert on the IT.
Oh, yeah. Not so much. Well, the database of all property owners had been in an access database. And it was built probably 7 years ago, 8, 10, I don't know, a number of years ago. And when it was created, it was not understood that we would, various things, we didn't allow for everything we needed to allow for.
Curiosity.
There's no point in going into all the details. It just was no longer functioning very well. So we were thinking we would have to have it upgraded by somebody really knowledgeable, and that's not cheap. So we budgeted $4,000 just thinking, oh, there are $4,000 out there. Then I realized, I use QuickBooks for the books. I realized that I could actually enter all of your names, and it took me 3 months. I did them one by one, because I figured that way I could do an audit, make sure I got the right names, the right people, contact information, and so on. So I did it by hand versus, I guess you can import it, but I didn't want to mess with
Yeah.
that. So that saved us the money. We didn't have to spend the $4,000.
I'm a QuickBooks guy too.
Oh, you
so
are?
I
I'm going to
recognize-
remember this.
Volunteer, you're a volunteer.
Well, yeah, Google is my friend. I tell you what, I do a lot of Googling, but I will keep your name in my head.
You deserve a bonus after that project.
Why, thank you. Thanks.
So, any other questions? I guess the next thing would be to look at the proposed budget for the coming year, which is this fiscal year. And what we vote on are just, we don't vote on, how many pencils we're gonna buy, or things like that, but just the main line items. So you'll see those under expenses, capital projects and so on. The income is a given, so we list the income we anticipate in the coming fiscal year from all our sources. And we have like 4 sources of income. And the big items of expenditures, there's 6 categories of those worth looking at. General operating, operations and maintenance, capital projects. That does include the beach. So the total numbers are in the right column. So if you scroll down there, you can see what it is we're voting on. Well, suggested that we look at the types of income that we have, just to review. The STD at the top is special tax district, and something that we applied to the county commissioners who approved it 2 years ago, I guess now.
We're in the first year.
Yeah, they approved it preceding year. So that's basically just tax money that the county takes from all of us and holds it. And then as we need it for paying big ticket items like the roads, big projects that are eligible for this funding, we present the bill to the county and they transfer the money to us. So they keep control and assure that the money's used appropriately. The next one is SHUR, S-H-U-R, State Highway User Revenue. Again, that's our revenue from gas tax. It's going down this year, but we just have to take whatever we get from the state. It's not very clear how they allocate it, but I think they suspended the gas tax for a while during COVID, and there's probably less revenue coming in So they reduced our income from this short a little bit. Although we did budget for 11, I think we did probably less than that.
Where?
And there's the covenant, which is all of our point contributions that we all make, and the mandatory assessment. Again, we all make those every year with the bills that get sent out. We'll have seen those. And those really are the two things we're voting on, expenditures of those two types of income. The county is, the approval there comes from the county commissioners. And the state highway user revenue, it's just sort of extra. So when you vote today, you'll be looking at the covenant mandatory assessment and the major expenditures that we expect from those two income flows.
So why is it a decrease in expected revenue on that,
Pretty sure?
on the covenant?
Covenants?
23 to 24, is it a decrease of $20,000?
23 to 24? No, it's an increase.
It's a little bit of increase.
137,
How much
136.
is FY 24?
So on the income line, the horizontal line, the first line is income. Go down there, it's, covenant is 137 last fiscal year, 146 and change this fiscal
Oh, I'm
year.
sorry, I didn't think you were, I got it.
And that's figured at 80% of what I bill, because that's generally our collection rate. Same with county property taxes, generally 80%.
But actually, I think our residents have been,
We're a little above
it's-
80%.
So we're ahead of,
Well, I don't
got more
They
money
gotta
than
figure
we
something out,
expect.
that's what I'm saying.
So if there's any questions on the expenditure lines or the income lines, let us know.
If there are no questions, then I guess we're prepared to vote.
Someone could move to accept.
If somebody has to move that we accept the budget and vote on it.
So we accept the budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, then let's vote.
Tear it off and drop it. Just tear it down. Oh, I've got them here. Judy, I've got them over there. You look for a tag? They're at the end of my, at the table.
When we count those, we don't want to find any button. This is not sure.
Can you get one here?
Voting on the budget.
Do you want to? Yeah, go to the trail, tear off the trail. Yeah, you can do it that way. Yeah.
Just put yes on the line, no on the box.
Chat among yourselves.
Yeah, we can, everybody can even chat among themselves, and this is a free opportunity to ask the board any questions that you may have, polite, impolite, whatever.
No, I don't have a question, but I'd like to share something, an experience that I literally just had last night. And for those of you that read the newsletter, there was a little article in there about blocking the roads because of fire equipment. Okay, you know, fire trucks, etc. Without going into the details, you can ask me offline. I had to call the fire department to my home last night in the middle of the night, and two vehicles showed up, one big fire truck and there was a car, now I live on Lakeview, some of you know where I live, and there was a car parked on the left-hand lane side of Lakeview, and the fire truck could barely make it down to my street. Turned out I did not have a fire, and that's a whole other story, but point being that article was in the newsletter recently, and I just had the very real experience, so I'm gonna share it with Rhea, maybe she can reiterate it, that fire truck, we watched it, and it really had to suck it up to get down to my house. Just a, kind of a thing for everyone to know, please
Yeah,
don't block your streets.
Yeah, everybody likes to park in front of houses and friends' houses, but you really should make sure that all four wheels are off the road. All four wheels should be in the right of way and not on the road. Technically, you can get a ticket if one of your wheels is on the road, but that's, you know, if you pay $100, you can get a $5 meal somewhere. But, you know, you really should keep your car off the street. It just creates all kinds of.
Was this car, somebody visiting somebody?
I don't know, you know, I know the neighbor, and when I see that neighbor, I don't think it's that neighbor's car, just trying to be neutral here. But when I see that neighbor, I'm just gonna kindly say, hey, you know, because it was in front of their house.
Well, for the few people who live on River Terrace, we experience this issue almost every day when people are parking, like typical teenagers parked, and you're lucky to get one wheel off the asphalt.
Yeah.
And it's not just fire trucks and ambulances, but there are people like this young lady right here who couldn't even get out of her house, out of her driveway to go to the store, so she had to drive across my lovely yard, and I still love her to death. And she can drive across my yard anytime.
Don't, the gardening bill is coming.
And it's weird, we're having this here, we were thinking we probably had this discussion maybe under public comment or something, but it just feels like it warrants its own agenda item, perhaps at some meeting in the future. What is the problem? A little more background on it, what the county's stance is on this, what Drum Point's stance is, and what corrective actions are prepared to be implemented going forward.
Yeah, I know you're not the only one, because we've had other people with the same complaint that on River Terrace, the teenagers, a lot of them will park there and they block. They're not supposed to park there, and
It's become a party hangout, the old River Terrace.
You know,
We thought it was a quiet little place. Yes,
you can be a bad neighbor. Call the sheriff.
I did.
I did.
We
Oh,
did.
they had
We
it.
dialed the sheriff, and we explained everything, and we got the blank stare over the telephone, and then we said we had been instructed that if we call you, you will dispatch a deputy to come down and give these people a ticket, and I waited for the sheriff to show up, and they were too busy. That's what I heard.
It's a state problem. Did you call them?
I don't call it,
I
well, we
called
were
the state
instructed
police.
not to call the state police, to
Really?
call the Calvert County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah.
They're the ones that typically implement rules that
Maybe
deal
tell the
with
county that's
ordinances
your next call.
Yeah.
or my attorney.
Yeah, I've had
It's
her
It's all.
call several times, and they're not very responsive,
We have to figure something else out.
You know?
What is it?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Don't ever tell anybody I said it, and I don't know if it'll work. Send a letter to the sheriff, explain what happened, and tell him that if he doesn't do something, in the next election, you will send
I
a
was going to say,
sizable
we'll remind him that
contribution
he is an
to his
elected
opponent.
official.
I'm serious.
Oh, I completely
My
understand.
mother did that one time to a Republican candidate. She didn't know there were two political parties. And she said, I'll send a check to the other people. Somebody did something.
Well, we could also send out an email. I mean, we send out the newsletter 4 times a year, but people don't read that. People that would be offending don't read it. And that's part of the problem too. And
Well,
they don't come
another
to this
option-
meeting, obviously.
If the people that are making the offenses don't come, don't read the no parking signs, don't care, and
Well, what if we as the board contacted the sheriff again? and
Yeah,
said,
yeah, we
you
should.
know,
That was
we've
gonna be
had
my
multiple-
suggestion.
Yeah, that would be
Have one of
nice.
them show up at a future meeting to answer these questions
Oh, you're.
They have been in.
He was at one.
regarding that
previously.
issue. Okay, then
Oh,
you
pardon?
can answer
speeding,
why they don't
yes.
show
well,
up
no,
on
this is
the
the
call.
parking issue.
Well, this is the parking
Yeah,
issue.
we had him here for a speeding issue,
Yeah.
because just sometimes there's like a random person who goes, you know, speeding around the causeway, and there are kids that are playing, and
Mhm.
so we brought him in for that, and he put out a speed detector, not where we wanted it, but he did put one out, and his summary of it was that the average person doesn't speed, and he didn't, you know, it doesn't solve the problem.
We tried to get the speed limit lowered
Yeah.
also, but the state sets the speed limits for communities like this. And there's been no fatalities, no injuries because of speeding traffic, therefore we're not considered, you know, to need to have that done. So that's that one. But also, I didn't really hear much of what was being said, but as far as the parking, I met with the police officer, there's a liaison, sheriff's deputy, what have you, and he came and I was communicating with him in email and explaining and sending pictures that people have sent me. And he and I went down to River Terrace and looked it over and so on and so forth. And I've several times asked over the last 18 years that I've been here, would you please increase the patrols in Jerome Point? Please. And, okay, we will. And then maybe they do for a little while, just to have that police presence. It just doesn't seem to actually land. But he did say if we would put signage up, then it could be enforced. Before we really didn't have signage except it said no parking on asphalt except it was turned. I think you pointed that out to me. So if you're gonna make a right turn, you're really probably not gonna see that. So he moved that down to where you would see it. Is it any better than it was? I'm sorry, I missed all the conversation there.
Well, I think it's not as bad as it was, but I think there's just less people parking there right now for
Right.
whatever reason, but we'll see what happens
Yeah.
in the weekend.
And you had mentioned the idea of moving the gate back.
Yeah,
Our purchasing, no, I know, our purchasing a portion of the club property, and I sent an email to Eric Andreas, who is the president of the board for the club, Asha's husband. He said, yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. So anyway.
Other question over here.
Oh,
So I'm not familiar with the area, but is there anything you can do with hardscaping or landscaping or fencing or anything? I mean, are they just parking on grass?
well, I'm not,
I mean, partially on grass,
Well-
partially on the road?
yes, but mostly, well, yeah, I guess. And like on River Terrace, this, I think,
But the issue
Cheryl, you
is
sent me
that
pictures, and they're so
you
close to
can't
each
get
other,
a
you couldn't
fire
get
truck
through.
or an ambulance through there
Exactly
to
right.
the people who live at the end of the street.
And that's what I
Because kids
stressed.
are coming in parking at angles,
Right.
and then sometimes you can't even get out of
Get
a
out.
driveway. And I have a driveway off of, we two are the only two that have driveways off of River Terrace.
Well, no,
And it's,
we're down on that. Anyway,
yeah, but it's not really
Fair
a
enough.
driveway.
but,
Further.
I don't.
So I lived in a community where cars got towed all the time because somebody was parked like that, or
Right.
even if you had somebody parked in your driveway overnight, that their car wasn't.
Yeah.
So it was very strict. So I wonder if
And I guess we could check into that. I mean, that's sort of a board decision to do that.
Be an escalation.
Find a towing
yeah.
company. I think part of the problem, because the deputy mentioned that as well, definitely have to be a local one. And what an issue might be, would be if somebody called, by the time they could respond, the car's gone, and now we have to pay a towing, a fee to have him respond. I'm not quite sure, but
I had
I
somebody.
can certainly check into it.
Yeah, because I had somebody stay in the community that I was in. They got their car towed and they got to pay for it.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, and so the community.
No, I meant if the car, by the time the tow truck got there, the car was gone.
Oh, I see.
Now, we called them for a tow, and plus somebody would have, who's gonna, like, it's on a Saturday. Nobody's in the office on Saturday. I think that was another issue. So how do you get the word to, you know, the towing company?
I mean, the property owners.
I guess you could put a phone number
And
there.
I have a
Typically
feeling they
the
had a
size.
contract with the towing company
Right.
because they enforced it so.
Okay, did they, okay. I'll see what's available, and if that's, if they would allow, I imagine they would, allow their phone number right on that post. And then, yeah.
One question. In defense of my family members who come visit, are we certain that all the roads that we're talking about are within code in terms of the width of the actual asphalt?
No, they're probably not in code. There's some
Well,
right
I
of
mean,
ways
how
through
can,
here.
if, you know, if we live off a road that clearly is not
Right.
under code for the width of the actual pavement, so
The private
who are we
roads-
gonna
They're
complain
privately
to?
maintained.
Private roads,
They're
they're
privately maintained.
Huh?
Well, they're public roads,
private
privately
roads, public
maintained.
access.
Right. Private roads for public access. So I don't know if we come under those rules. I don't know.
I don't think it's private road, it can be as wide as we want.
Yeah,
It's a very old neighborhood.
this is an old community. I mean, you know, some of these, their streets are, they're like 40-foot right-of-ways. I think there's one that's only 30. So you don't have much room in there. I mean, there's unpaved right-of-way on either side.
So, but who's
So
the
you're gonna
guilty
lose some of
party?
your, pardon me?
In a lawsuit, who's the guilty party then? If the road isn't under code, and you're gonna tow somebody's car, and somebody sues, who's the guilty party?
There is no code. There's no code to comply with or violate.
I don't know on community like this. I really don't know.
Sorry.
That's okay. But I just don't have an answer. I mean, I'll check. I'll ask the sheriff's deputy.
They probably say it's a civil issue.
Yes, they will.
If so, I mean, we'll figure it out and we can write up a paper and let everybody know.
I mean, definitely would have to have, if we were to, we definitely have to have good signage so people are aware.
Oh, yes.
Not to.
Right.
Anyway, getting off that wonderful subject. Getting back to the vote on the budget, there were 23 absentee yes votes, 14 present yes votes for 37, and no negative votes. So the budget has passed, it has been accepted. Continue without public comment. All right, now technically, we're now starting public comment, but we've sort of been doing that. Does anybody have any other public comment?
Just a question. Tony, does DPPA, does the association have any policy on Airbnbs within the community? I noticed there are these 6 in the community.
Yes, that's been a topic of discussion, and we have none. My understanding, the only rules that apply are those by the county, and that's with rental buildings, multiple families. I don't think there are any prohibitions in the county, so we don't have. Airbnb is a new concept. It never existed.
That would be an issue for the covenants, and you know about our covenants. We're here in 48, nobody thought about an Airbnb in
And you
1948.
know how easy it is to change those.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I think newer communities are beginning to write that into their covenants.
And of course, Airbnb makes the parking situation up to
Sometimes.
I haven't had any reports, though, I will say this, of that Airbnb next door, they were partying all night. You know, nothing. I haven't had any reports. Not to say there haven't been maybe some issues. I
I'm just
haven't.
wondering whether we have anything that, I mean, these are basically commercial businesses. Just wondering whether there's any situation where we have a policy.
Covenants do state that there'll be no businesses. But, that being said, there are quite a few little businesses, like small engine repair and, you know, computer building or repair services. Childcare you can't limit. I don't think the state will allow you to limit that. But the board has always, I think, taken the position that it's understood that people need to make a living. Now, the Airbnbs, people are beginning to buy those as investment properties. There's one on Lake Terrace now. And they bought it specifically and turned it into
One
an
of those, there's one where
versus-
there's an absentee owner who runs one in Florida, and runs one in the community.
Yeah,
But you know, the
it's-
Airbnb is not inhabiting this building, it's just leasing the house.
Yes.
So it's not really like they're having a business.
Yeah, it's not like
Business, right?
business, no, I don't even know if it could be considered a
It's a
business.
different,
It's such a new concept.
Different beasts.
We're just kind of curious to see what,
Yeah,
if we had anything.
It's been a topic of discussion, but
Mhm.
no answer. Anything else?
I'm sorry.
It's totally different if you were to plan it out.
Is there any language in the covenants about a primary residence?
No,
Because Airbnbs are not a primary
there's no
residence.
language in the covenants for that.
There are so many people here that have a residence in the district or in Waldorf or somebody in Dunkirk and a house here.
But they have to claim a primary residence for tax purposes.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, for tax
they do.
purposes,
But
but our
they don't,
covenants
you know,
don't address it.
But it doesn't have to be here.
No.
Yeah.
How was it decided where streetlights are placed?
Oh, that's a good one.
We're laughing because that has come up so many times.
Yeah, yeah. Echo doesn't want to hear it. That's-
I mean, I'm also relatively new to living in a neighborhood, so I was just curious because one street has streetlights, the other street has no streetlights.
I think historically, I've been going through a lot of old files, you know. People turn 90, they're going to the retirement home, and they bring in all their old files from having been on the board 35 years ago. So, you know, when I've got time, I kind of go through these. And I did run into some of, you know, like letters back and forth to, I guess, county government, state, and so on about streetlights. And the county actually had, I think it's 84 streetlights installed. And we're paying that bill all those years until about 4 years ago when they realized they were doing it. And they told us we would have to start doing that, which we are now doing. So like 13 or so thousand a year. But there's also a number of security lights. And the people that have those put in, the property owner who has one put in pays for that electric.
You can always identify those.
Yes.
Street lights, the light points out over the street. On a security light, it arcs back onto the person's property.
And if you could perhaps have one put in. But as far as our having more actual street lights put in, the reason I was laughing is that we have done like surveys over the years. And for every 2 people that want one, 3 people don't, and vice versa. You can't get everybody to agree on it. And the houses are relatively close together, and there was an issue, I think on Cove Drive, I don't know, a few years ago. Street light was coming right in their bedroom. Well, can it be moved? Yes, it can be moved. But we had to consult all the property owners on that street. Take it out completely. You put it in front of my house, I don't want it near me. I mean, it was just impossible. So it's just another one of those.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Back to the cars and the driving fast in the neighborhood. Is speed bumps out of the question?
No, they're not out of the question. Ambulances don't like them, fire trucks don't like them, the snow plows don't like them, the school buses don't like them.
But if it saves a child, is that?
Again, as Rita said, we've had no fatalities. You know, it's sidewalk speeding, you missed the general membership meeting a couple, 3 or 4 back when I think almost fist fights broke out. You know,
There were a
it
few
was a
issues.
heated discussion.
Yeah. The thing of it is, and not to bring up issues from that meeting, but plan. You know, well, if you move into a community, I'm actually, I guess I'm thinking of younger families, and you have small children, you moved into a community without sidewalks. And it's unfortunate, you know, there's really nowhere for you to teach your kid to ride a bicycle, or for them to do chuck drawings on the sidewalks and so on. But that is the community in which you live. And it's a hard subject. I think that's part of the reason there's so much discussion these days, is that the community the demographics are changing. A lot of those old timers that bring all their files to me, they've left, or they've passed on, and what have you. And now there's a lot of families, young families with little children. So things are changing, but it's an old community. We don't just make a change. You know, if we put in sidewalks, you're gonna lose, what, 3 feet of your front yard, what you consider your front yard. It's not your yard, it's the right of way for the association. But yet, it's your yard. Do you want to, you know,
You might have trees growing.
yeah, I mean, it's a hard issue to address, I think.
I don't know if you have young families or,
Well, we,
No, we
our
don't.
we
We
don't,
don't.
the street we live on has many
On
children, and the cars just fly like
On
that.
I was somewhere the other day, and they weren't speed bumps, but they were like these little rumble strips of dirt, like that. I mean, it wouldn't maybe slow you down because, oh, there's a speed bump, but it might like remind you. I wonder if we could check
There's
it.
also, they put the watch the children's signs out just recently.
Well, the state does not want that.
They don't?
No.
I guess that really makes
I
you
know.
think,
Yeah.
Like drive slowly, children.
well, they're just little
No,
ones
but
that
you're
they put
talking
out.
about the ones that are
Little
big.
people.
They put their own like on either side of the road in their yard.
Oh, well, that's,
So that was just.
yeah, that's.
You already doing
Oh, you are? And it's not
Well,
helping
no, our
you?
neighbors.
Oh,
There was also,
okay.
yeah,
Are you on her?
also,
No, we're
Oh,
our neighbor told me this, but I also saw it on Facebook, on Lake Drive, there was a car chase. And they were flying by, and the police was
I know, but-
flying by, and,
But
I mean.
Somebody who's gonna drive like that through a community is not gonna be slowed by signs or
Right,
even a
honestly,
speed bump or
And there are
anything.
people on their, in their golf carts and stuff, I mean, it's a problem because, you know, when something does happen, then,
Yeah,
then we're all
absolutely.
gonna be
Absolutely.
asking ourselves, what could we have done? You know?
We are gonna add a stop sign at Lake Drive and Lake Place.
I know that they're around.
Yeah.
Well, that's sort of the fallacy of when the deputy was here and made the presentation. I mean, they gave us, basically, they gave us a statistical mean of speed, right? And it's really the outliers to that, which are the ones that are the problems.
those problems,
And so
right.
they really didn't address that.
Yeah, they did,
Right.
yeah, I agree.
You're absolutely right.
But I think they're trying to make one rule to, you know, to cover everybody
Yeah.
versus this rule and that rule.
It's also a nice excuse to not do anything.
Well, and I always tell people, call the sheriff's department, and if they don't show up, call them again. Call them and call them and pester them.
That may have been discussed when you were out of your room.
Probably.
Then in the back row. he
Said
talked
they
about-
didn't show up.
I know, so, and I knew about that, but I just mean, I just feel like the more we call and pester them, now, if they're on some sort of an emergency call, they're not gonna drop what they're doing and come and worry about somebody parking. You know, they have to prioritize. But I just mean, if you call, and if you call, and if I call, over and over and over again, and that's why I wanted them to come through more often, so they could be there, be seen. Tony?
Oh,
No, over here, go ahead.
Maybe we should recruit someone from the sheriff's office into the neighborhood. The neighborhood that we moved from had a couple of sheriffs in the neighborhood, and that made a big difference. Because things like that, they would take it upon themselves because they were vested in the community to act on it,
Right.
so.
but we've got a Prince George's cop living in the
Maybe he has friends, get word out. Or she, maybe they have friends.
I'm sorry, I have a technical question. Is the sheriff's office the only law enforcement in this area? There's no county police?
No, it's the
No,
same.
there's
the same.
That's what that is, it's county
What?
sheriff, Calvert County Sheriff's Office.
That's it?
Yeah, well, there's a state police, but I don't think they patrol neighborhoods.
They helped me find my lost deer that someone stole.
Well,
one
there
year.
you go.
The sheriff's department blew me off and the county helped me get it back. I mean, the state department actually came and helped me
What
get
was
it
it?
back.
What was it?
My lawn deer was in a different neighborhood. But I'm just saying, I called them because I said the sheriff's department's not helping me and they came right out. I found it and they went to the other house and got it.
Decorations.
So, maybe I wasn't allowed, but they told me that. So I find the state department better than the sheriff's department.
State police,
State
not the state department.
Anthony joins us.
Anything else?
I just want to comment on this, children playing in the street. The other night, came home and on Lake Drive, there was a barricade up in the road saying children playing.
I sent that person an email saying, you cannot do that. And that we are gonna put the stop signs They wanted a three-way stop, and I contacted Public Works County. They have no jurisdiction, but Mike wanted me to contact them to see. And they said, well, we have no jurisdiction, but you might want to contact a traffic engineer. So I tried to find a traffic engineer. I couldn't find one that would actually respond to me. I mean, they're not going to bother with a three-way stop in a little community in southern Maryland. These people from DC and Annapolis and so on. I never heard back from them. But Joe Bateman, who does our day labor around the community, happened to stop and was talking to them about that. And they thought, all of them in their discussion said, well, how about just one stop sign here, Lake Drive, Lake Place? That might help. But I will say, the three-way stop at Pine and Lake, I know at least 2 people in the community that have told me, I refuse to stop there. That wasn't needed, and I'm not going to stop there.
But even, you know, if you put the stop sign up on, I have no problem with it. But when you make the turn, you know, people say, you know, you're speeding. Well, you cannot speed making that turn and then going around. But a little kid come running out, you know, you're going to hit them.
I know.
And those people do not understand that they have to have their, get in touch with the person across the street, have them play on their yard. But when you're coming around that corner, and then plus they have a truck there, so you don't see anything. So what do we just coast, go 5 miles an hour or 2 miles an hour until we get past their house and then come down the hill? And then plus, people coming up in the other direction. You know, that's a tight squeeze,
But this
where
is
you
a small-
kind of have to go on.
That's how our roads are. And
I know.
we do have to go 2 miles an hour sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean,
To
that's,
avoid.
but there's still, a child runs out
I know.
in that situation. Somebody's gonna get hurt,
I agree, but I don't know what else to do with
I
that.
know.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to when the sheriff was here discussing speeding, things like that. He also said that on Rousby Hall, you can pass on the right. You know, Rousby Hall, I call it the Rousby Hall Athletic Club, because there are people walking, bicycles.
Right.
And I was upset when he said that, because if that's true, you're gonna start knocking over bicycles, kids, and everything. Has anyone thought about that? Has it been an issue that's been raised before? I was shocked to hear that, you know. When I was taking my driver's stuff 80 years ago, that you couldn't do that.
Right.
Whether you can or not.
That's a state highway.
I'm sorry?
That's a state highway.
That's not,
But I know, it had been like coming up by CRE's entrance,
Yeah.
and it's marked, and those kinds of places, cautiously, you can go by when a lot
Right.
of people are turning in. But I have read, just what you said, that now you are allowed to pass on the right in Maryland. I mean,
For a car that's stopped for a left turn.
yes,
yeah.
well, yes.
Right.
Yeah, if we're all driving, you can't. Right, no. But yes, for a car that is stopped for a left turn. Good point. But I don't, you can't dictate common sense.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's scary. I mean, sometimes if I want to make a right turn, you know, on Harbor, just to go to my place,
Yeah.
and there's somebody who's turning left,
Yes.
you know, to come into the entrance. I mean, I'm getting ready to make my turn, and all of a sudden I see somebody passing on the
Yes.
shoulder on the right.
Yeah.
You know,
I used to live on Harbor, and I always pulled right into the shoulder and then make my right turn, for that reason. It's not quite legal, or the right way to do it, but it made better sense to me, for that reason.
Now the driving class is over. Is there any other comment on something other than kids, roads, stop signs?
Since we have newer people here, can you tell them about the festivities this weekend that everybody's invited to?
Yes.
Drum Point Day is Saturday from, I think it's
2 to
7.
Yes.
And food's being served from 4:30 to 5:30. Hot dogs, burgers, coleslaw, potato salad, and so on. Sodas and water. If you want to bring adult beverages, you can do that, but the club can't provide those. And there'll be 2 bands. I think the first one starts at 2 until 4, and then 4 until 6, something like that. And it was in the newsletter, which I know you all read. So, and that's basically it. It's a nice day. You know, it's a real nice, good way to get to know your neighbors and so on.
Anything else? Yes.
Related to that, is there a contingency, should it be storming?
We do it
Big
inside.
thunderstorm.
We do it inside.
Is the coordinator of that event here,
No.
present today?
No, Bruce Fall, no, he's not here. So it's the club and the association do it jointly. And Bruce does most of the organization.
I signed up for some work, but I've got a window replacement going on, so I need to talk to
Yeah, you can talk to, Bruce Hall.
Bruce Fall.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?